Alright, I wanted to leave a quick video. I'm not a YouTuber, but just a schmuck. But I want to leave a quick little video on this car and upload it to YouTube and talk a little bit about why I bought it and all of that. So first of all, this is a 2023 Mazda CX-5. This is the new color for 2023, which is white. But they call it rhodium white, and to me it's white. I think to any lay eye, this is white. Mazda does have another color called snowflake white, which is probably a little bit more white than this. So what I don't know is the signature color for Mazda is the Soul Red Crystal. And it does look really good. I mean, I can't deny that, but it has a history of chipping. A lot of people complain about chipping. There's something about the paint. Perhaps they put it on very thin. I don't know, but it seems that the Soul Red has more problems with chipping than the other colors from the research that I've done. And this is the very first color of this rhodium white. And you may hear an airplane in the background there. I'm a pilot, so I have my airplane there. But so basically, my concern is the longevity of this rhodium white. I don't know if this is going to eventually have chipping problems or not. As of today, I've owned this car for 1 month and 1 day, and I've put about 700 miles on it in that time. That's a pretty good run rate for me, so I'm probably going to average about 600 to 700 miles per month. The occasional road trip may pull that average up, but my wife has a Prius, so often when we take road trips, we take the Prius because it gets double the gas mileage that this thing does. This is actually a better riding vehicle, but I'll take the Prius if I can pay half the fuel. So I don't know how many road trips we'll do in this when we can do road trips in the Prius. But that said, time will tell what this rhodium white does as far as chipping. But this is the Select trim level. So in terms of what Mazda offers, this is the second from the bottom trim level. They offer like 7 trim levels on this thing, and this would be the bottom, well, second from the bottom, which I thought was a good value. I don't need Bose speakers. I don't need an electric lift gate. I don't really need that stuff. It's nice, but I don't need it. The 19-inch rims, that is an option. These are 17-inch rims. The 19-inch rims do look nice, but so do these. So at the end of the day, I just need something that's gonna roll. Does it roll? Yes, we're good. I'm not really into all of that. I'm 41 years old, so I still have a little bit of youth in me, but I'm not a kid anymore. So I don't need all the fancy rims and aftermarket this and that. At the end of the day, I mean, I'm an airplane guy. I love planes. For me, I do like cars, but to me, a car is kind of like an appliance. It's a tool. You buy it, you treat it well only because the investment in it. You treat it well, you take care of it. I mean, I really do take care of my cars. Anybody that knows me knows that. But to me, even though I really do like it, it is an appliance at the end of the day. It's meant to get me from point A to point B and have a little bit of style and not cost me an arm and a leg along the way. That's kind of the point. So I can show the vehicle to you, but it's no different than any other CX-5, and the internet has tons of videos out there on the CX-5. But one thing I did want to mention about it was why I bought it. So I'm coming out of a 2006 Ford Explorer, And if you're familiar with the Explorers, people call them exploders. But it actually was relatively reliable for me. It didn't really give me any major problems. It was never my primary vehicle. My primary vehicle was a Nissan Sentra, a 2000 model year, and I sold it at the beginning of 2020. I think that's right. I may be off on that, but right around there. And it was my intention to replace that Sentra with another daily driver, but I didn't want to pay for it at that time. So I decided that I would drive my backup vehicle and also my trailer puller and my cargo hauler. You can't do that much in a Sentra, but the Explorer will actually do some stuff. So I kind of had it as kind of a spare tool vehicle, and I decided that I would drive it as a daily until I was ready to buy a new car. And that's exactly what I did. So it did have the usual radiator leak, it did have that kind of stuff, but basically it was a nice truck, and it was in very good shape. And I made the decision to trade it in, and I kind of regret doing that, because I took about a $2,500 bath on trading in that Explorer, and it kind of made me realize that all the love that I gave that Explorer over the time I had it was really kind of moot at the end of the day, because I traded it in and I lost money, and who knows what they're going to do with it, and that's water under the bridge now. But it got me thinking, okay, am I going to sell my soul to the devil in order to keep this car, this Mazda, super nice, just so I can drive it for 10 or 12 years and then trade it into somebody? I've kind of changed my mentality on it. I mean, I do want to take care of it. I take care of it for me, but at the end of the day, it's a tool, and I need to remember that. I'm not going to put seat covers in it. I'm not going to do any of that. I'm going to enjoy it, and when I'm done with it, somebody else will get it, and that'll be on them. So I don't want to bring the ownership experience pleasure out of it because I'm so anal about it. But that being said, it is my first new car, and I mentioned I was 41 years old, so I bought my first brand new car at 41. I've been driving old, kind of used cars my entire life, and I finally got to a point financially where I can afford to make a bad financial decision, which buying a new car typically is. So there's no way to make it mathematically work. It's always a function of saying, I want to, and doing it, and that's that. So that's what happened with this car. I got a depreciating asset. Not a big fan of doing that. I work in finance, so I know the downsides of buying a depreciating asset. But that's what I did. And if I can get 10 or 12 years out of it and sell it for, 10 or 12,000 bucks, I bought it for about 30. So 18 grand to drive it for 10 or 12 years. I can handle that. Like I said, my driving average is about 700 miles a month, which means I'm going to do about 8,000 miles per year, which means in one decade, I'm going to have 80,000 miles in this thing. And in 12 years, I'll have just under 100,000 miles. So it's possible that I, as the first owner of this vehicle, will never see it cross 100,000 miles. That is possible. I don't know what the future holds, but that is possible. But why did I buy it? Why did I buy a CX-5? Well, the main reason is convenience. I'm not going to argue any other point than that. It's convenience. They built a Mazda dealer within about 4 miles of my house. And it's really convenient. It's on my way to work. It's really convenient to swing in there. And I've been looking at these things as I drive by the dealership, and they have CX-50, they have other stuff. And I said, let me go in there and take a look at these things. And I went in there and I made the decision to buy it. And the truth is, I thought about buying a new car for a pretty long time, and Mazda was not on my list. They weren't on my list. I would have been a Honda or a Toyota guy. I mean, those are the brands that people think of when they think of reliability. And I won't argue that point. Honda and Toyota, they make a fantastic vehicle. Problem is, and this may not actually even be a problem, but the problem is they are going the way of the CVT, and they're going the way of the little tiny turbo engines. And for whatever reason, I am not emotionally ready to buy a car that's a 1.5 liter turbocharged engine that's mounted to a continuously variable transmission. I'm not there mentally. That could be something that I can do later in my life, but my experience with that, it's not personal experience, it's anecdotal, it's internet research, but my experience with that is that CVTs suck. Now, if Honda and Toyota are making CVTs, you can be damn sure that they're doing a pretty damn good job of it. But just because they slap their name on it doesn't mean that it's going to be problem-free. And I will tell you, in 2023, it is very difficult to find any kind of a car that is not a little turbocharged CVT. In fact, I think the Nissan Rogue is literally a 3-cylinder engine. It's like a 1.3 liter 3-cylinder turbocharged monstrosity that is bolted to a CVT, and I can't do it. I won't tell you that that's not a personal shortcoming, or that I know the absolute facts. I don't. Whatever the truth is, I am not emotionally ready to buy a car like that. I want a car that is as close to every other car that I've ever had as I can get. And the Mazda fit the bill. In 2023, you cannot get away from all the technology and all the stuff they put in these things. But Mazda, and maybe it's because they're, trying to make a car a little bit cheaper, I don't know, but they seem to make cars that are as close to what they used to be, at least in my prime, as you can get today, without going to a truck. And I have nothing against trucks, I just personally didn't want one for this purpose. This car is a 2.5 liter 4-cylinder, naturally aspirated. There's no turbo on this, and it has a regular transmission. In fact, it's only a 6-speed transmission. It is an automatic. If they had made this in a manual, I would have bought it, but they don't make it in a manual. Manuals are going away, but it's a regular car, and it has push button start, it has Apple CarPlay, it has, every time I turn my signal on or cross over a lane, it vibrates my wheel, and it's got a little camera, and there's things that you really can't not have in a car that's built in 2023. But this is as close to a basic car as I felt that I could get. And that's one of the big reasons that I bought it. The other reason I bought it is because they came out with this car in 2017. The CX-5 actually came out earlier than that, I think 2013 or 2012, something like that. But this generation came out in 2017, and this is the 2023. So some people will say that, well, it's getting a little dated, it's looking a little aged, it's getting a little long in the tooth. And that may be true, but the upside in my mind is that this is now the 6th year of this generation, and statistically speaking, car manufacturers will typically have problems when they put a car out in the first generation. There's little things that they didn't know about, and people complain, and they keep all that information, and and they make improvements. And again, that's a bit emotional. I don't know what specifically they've done to improve this thing, but in my opinion, if they are willing to build the same car for 6 years in a row, they have probably ironed out some of the kinks. So statistics perhaps favor the choice of getting a car that's in its 6th iteration of this generation. The other reason that I got it was that I just had a brain fart. What was I going to say? The other reason I got it is that it is made in Japan. They literally make this car in Hiroshima, Japan. And that doesn't mean that cars made in Mexico or made in Huntsville, Alabama or anywhere else are bad. But if you're going to buy a Japanese car and you're going to say, I'm going to stick to a Japanese brand because of the legendary reliability of them, why not get a car that's built by Japanese people? And this one was. Now, not all Mazdas are, but the CX-5 is made in Japan. This car was built in Japan, and it was shipped over here across the drink. Probably came into a port in California somewhere, and it was driven all the way to Florida, where I'm at. And again, does that mean anything? Is that going to actually get me down the road further? I don't know. But in my mind, there's something emotional about buying a car. Let's face it. In my mind, this thing might be more reliable because it was built by Japanese people in Japan. And not all the Mazdas are. I think the Miata is. The CX-3, no, I'm sorry, the Mazda 3. It's made in Japan, I think. The CX-50 is not. The CX-9 is not, I don't believe. They just came out with the CX-90, which I believe is made in Alabama. So, I don't know. But in terms of Japanese automakers, Mazda is on the list. And I would say, this first Mazda I've ever owned. I will say that my ex-wife had one years ago, and she never had a problem with it. My dad has a 1990 Mazda Miata. Now, he is on a second engine, so I don't know if that means anything, but basically it's been reliable. It's a stick shift. So I don't know. The truth is, I don't know how reliable this car will be. Anytime you buy anything, it's a bit of a leap of faith. The only time you really never ever know anything is when you've done it and you look back and say, yeah, it was good or it wasn't. But I will say this about Mazda. They do not have the market share that Honda has. They don't have the market share that Toyota has, by far. Orders of magnitude less market share. So they either suck at marketing or they don't have the reputation, perhaps deservedly so, and it takes a while to build that trust back. And I don't know whether they're doing it now or not, but I will say I've scoured the internet. I've actually done more research on this car after buying it than I did prior to buying it. And I will say that this thing gets amazing reviews. I mean, there's not a lot of people that have a lot negative to say about this car. The primary negative of this car, from what I've seen online, is the infotainment system. Some people say they want a touchscreen. Why didn't Mazda put a touchscreen in? And I get it. It would be nice. In fact, they should have put a touchscreen in and the knobs the way they have it set up. Then you can do the best of both worlds. To me, that was a missed opportunity. But to me, it's a mild thing. I actually typically just drive around in silence. I guess I have a lot of thoughts. So to me, the infotainment center shortcoming doesn't really matter. That's about it with this car. Then people talk about, storage space. Well, there's not a lot of storage space in it. And yes, they do call it an SUV, but come on, let's be honest. This is not an SUV. This is a car. This is every bit a car as a Honda Accord is. I mean, yes, it has a 2.5 liter engine in it, but most cars are running 1.8s to 2.0 liter engines. So, I mean, you could argue that. but this is a car. And you know, if you want a bunch of storage, get a real SUV. And I actually have one. I have an old Suburban I keep that I can put stuff in. And this is a car, and it has storage commensurate with a car. It's really in vogue right now to call everything an SUV. To me, to call the CX-30 an SUV is blasphemy. I mean, the thing is built on a Mazda 3 frame. It's a car. You make it a little taller, it doesn't make it not a car. And this is the same thing. So the storage doesn't really bother me. That's it. I will say from my personal review of the car, and the last thing I'm going to do is go walk around this car and show you features, because there's a shit ton of videos on YouTube that do that. But I will just tell you, in my personal experience with this car, 700 miles in 1 month of ownership, the only real thing I don't like about it is it's a little bit jerky at low speeds. The transmission has a little more going on than other vehicles I've had. And my opinion is that that is normal behavior for these vehicles. And there's 3 reasons why. Number one, this thing has cylinder deactivation in it. I wish it didn't, but it does. They all do, except for the turbos. The turbos do not, but then you pick your poison. You know, which one of those 2 things is the least reliable? My opinion is the turbo. That's why I didn't get one. I don't need a turbo to be doing 20 miles an hour behind a semi truck on my morning commute to work. I mean, I can drive to work in the morning without even getting this thing over 1500 RPM because I'm sitting in traffic. Why do I need a turbo? Anyway, side note. So it has cylinder deactivation, and there is a screen on the infotainment where I can see what it's doing, and I've turned that on, and yeah, it's turning off cylinders and it's turning on cylinders, and it does its best to keep that smooth, but it does cause a little bit of a jerk whenever it fires the other 2 cylinders up. And that's a thing. The second reason is it has a locking torque converter in it. So it's an automatic transmission, but most automatic transmissions have a standard torque converter, which is basically like a fluid vane. It's like think of it like a windmill or a little turbine. It's like a fluid turbine that runs in the bell housing, and it allows you to have a non-direct connection between the engine and the transmission. That's how you could stop at a light and put your foot on the brake and not stall the engine. With this car, they have that, but they added in a wet clutch. And a wet clutch is a multi-disc clutch. It's very similar to how they do it on a motorcycle. And it's not like a standard transmission clutch where you have a throw-out bearing and you have a one disc that runs up against a clutch plate. This is a wet clutch. I think it has four discs that are all splined, and anyway, you can Google wet clutches and how they work, but this has a wet clutch on it, and it's controlled by the computer. And basically, when you get up to about 5 miles an hour or so, I'm not sure what all the system logic is, but just for illustration, when you get up to 5 miles per hour or so, it will lock that clutch up, which basically means that you now have a direct relationship between the engine and the transmission, which is no different than what you get with a manual. So you know how when you drive a manual and you're going real slow, let's say you're driving slow in traffic with a manual, there's kind of like a zero thrust setting, if you will, where if you're not touching the clutch and you get below, the car kind of jerks, and then when you go above, it kind of jerks again. There's a little bit of that going on with this car, and the computer does a really good job of smoothing it out, but I'm very in tune with my cars, and I know it's happening. And the third thing is, and this is probably the least thing, but this car has all-wheel drive, and I think that it might be turning on that back. It's front-wheel drive car, but it has some ability to transfer power to the back, and it does that on its own. So between turning cylinders on and off, the wet clutch, or the clutch and the torque converter grabbing and disconnecting, and the all-wheel drive system, it's a little bit jerky. There's times where I'm in the neighborhood and I'm doing some real surgical kind of maneuvers, and it's a thing. Not a fan of that, but it's certainly not a deal breaker. It's a mild thing. So wrapping it up here, basically I took a leap of faith. I said Mazda's been around a long time. They went through a rough period with Ford. They started making Fords, and Ford, in my opinion, does not make a good vehicle. I think they're okay, but they're not a great vehicle. And I won't sit here and rave about Mazda because I've owned a Mazda personally for a month. But I think they're doing good now. I think they're doing well. And the reviews on this and the brand in general are very positive as of late. So I honestly do feel like maybe they've got their act together and maybe they're doing a good job. And the other part I will say is cars are weird right now in terms of what you can get and the pricing. And I think Mazda knows that they're not in the position to charge a ton of money for a vehicle. And I think they're right. I mean, not everybody thinks, ooh, I'm just going to get a Mazda for my next car. You know, they're on the list of good Japanese brands, but I don't think Mazda has earned the right to put themselves at the same table as Honda and Toyota. I don't think they have. That doesn't mean they make a car that's any worse. I mean, factually, I don't think that's the case. In fact, Mazda got #1 from J.D. Power and Consumer Reports in terms of reliability. They actually outranked Toyota and Honda in reliability. Now, is that valid? Is that going to translate into my experience? Time will tell. So they're probably trying to do better and to really make a good vehicle. And all the information that I have suggests that they did it with this. The CX-5 is the #1 selling Mazda vehicle they have by far. So they have effectively put their entire reputation and their hope of becoming a more mainstream brand in the US on this vehicle and the reliability of it. And the other thing about Mazda, because they don't have the R&D and they don't have the huge budgets that some of the other brands do, this same powertrain, this Skyactiv 2.5 liter engine and this 6-speed transmission are literally in every vehicle they make except the Miata. Like the CX-9, not the CX-90 that just came out, but this like days ago it just came out, but the CX-9, the 30, the 5, the 50, and the Mazda 3, they all have this exact same powertrain. So they're willing to build this powertrain and put it in every vehicle they have. That's a lot of skin in the game, and that makes me feel like they have a lot of confidence in it and they engineered it well. So again, time will tell. And it was a bit of a leap of faith, but I'll tell you, if I have a great ownership experience with this car, you know, I could become a Mazda fan. We'll see. I'm a Mazda fan now, but I don't really have any ammo to be able to back that up and tell you why. I guess I'm a Mazda fan because I own one, but I've never owned one before. So time will tell. But I did get the beige interior. I do like it. It's probably going to get dirty, but I really do like it, and I would buy it again. So that's all I got. That's 30 minutes of me blathering about this car, but I just wanted to give I want to give 30 minutes of my thoughts on why I bought this Mazda CX-5 for anybody who cares. And I only get about 30 views per video because, like I said, I'm not a YouTuber. Here comes an airplane landing. Yeah, so that's what I got. So time will tell. I shall drive it and be interesting. Of course, I don't want to give up any years of my life, but it would be interesting to fast forward 10 years and to talk to me in a decade from now, because I do plan to own this car about 10 years. So when we get to 2033, assuming I haven't been T-boned or something crazy like that. When I get to 2033, that's probably when I'll start thinking, maybe it's time to get another car. And at the rate I drive, this thing's gonna have about 80,000 miles on it. So, hell, even a Ford can go 80,000 miles. So I'm really not thinking I'm gonna have any reliability issues. I've reached a point in my life where I don't have to drive a car for 300,000 miles like I used to tell myself I had to. When you're young, you know, money, and I still like money. I want to invest. I want to be smart with my money. But when you're young, at least with me, when I was young, you know, I buy a car and it's like, this is for my forever, here for forever car. And therefore it must last forever. And I need something that's going to go to the moon and back 5 times and not give me any problems. And I just, that's not a requirement for me anymore. I'm gonna own the car about 10 years, and in 10 years, unless I've really screwed something up with my life, I should be in a position to buy another new car. And life is short, and like I said, I'm 41, so I'll probably start wrapping it up around 80. So that means I got 40 years left of driving, and who knows what the future holds. Maybe that's 4 new cars before I kick it. I don't know. But there you go, 2023 Mazda CX-5. See ya.